Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at the update trailer, or teaser trailer as it is. Now remember, this is usually the first part of an ongoing thing, which is going to happen. So tomorrow we'll probably have the dev streams, and then after that we'll have the dev servers. Don't worry, I'll cover it all for you as usual, so we'll get through it. What we're going to do in this video is analyze the trailer, basically tell you what's in it and what's about if you're interested, and also stuff to look forward to in the next major update, which is going to be called La Royale. Or La Royale with cheese. Let's get into it and start having a look. We start off with an IFV, which we'll talk about later on. Basically, it is one of the Italian IFVs, the Freccia IFV, which is turning about, but we get some better pictures of it later on, so we'll have a chat about it then. Wheeled vehicle, of course, and then something of Soviet origin turns up. But it ain't Soviet, it's Chinese. The J8 is in the hizzy. And then, of course, some guns as well. You can already tell there's a bunch of stuff in this trailer. They've gone back to the old versions of teaser trailers, which are so much better than the newer versions. You know, the idea of having a bunch of different vehicles, so we can have a look at them instead of like one random storyline around like a bunch of different things, which is just fantastic, you know? Like, it's really nice in general to see. So we then have the AMX-30 ALF-1, which once again, you know, it gives you little teasers in the start, and then here is where you can obviously tell it is the AMX-30 AUF. Now, the AUF-1 is very similar to a lot of other modernized artillery platforms. It's a 155mm, which has been put in a box on top of the AMX-30 chassis. One of the things that is pretty obvious, at least to me, is this idea of reusing a lot of either MBT chassis or other chassis for other reasons. You know, you have this a lot in the Second World War. If you have a look at a lot of the good old German tank destroyers, for example, you have a bunch of vehicles which their turrets get popped off, they become more of a casemate setup, and then you have the gun, you know, the Jagdpanther, for example, or even some of the Marders on the Panzer 38s or Panzer 35s, and now you have more the modern versions, which are the AMX-30 AUF-1s of this world. So you have the AMX-30 chassis, which we all know and love. It's been in the game for a long time with the standard AMX-30. Now you have the 155mm CN155 AUF-1 howitzer on it. Now this is a pretty powerful gun. They've been adding a lot of these donkey vehicles over the years, especially over the more recent years. You know, stuff like the Bazooka cannon or the band cannon, and even stuff like the G6 Rhino. The AMX-30 AUF-1, since it's a very modern vehicle, I'm sure we'll have access to a ton of different shells, and also at the same time will have a, well, hopefully a 50 cal on it, and not a lot of armor. You're only looking at maybe 20mm at most on the turret, and of course the chassis is a standard AMX-30 one, so it should be pretty mobile for the vehicle. And overall a pretty nice platform to have, but it's not something that's ever going to like kind of take over games. The reload is one of the parts of it which is the most interesting to look at, and we'll have to see how that is modeled when it comes to the game. So nice to see the MX-30. Obviously the good old patch seems to be very much around France in general, and now we get a look at why they're showing the J8. Now, we already have a J8 in the game. We have the J8B, of course, and the J8B is one of those vehicles that's pretty modern, and there's a lot going on for it. But there are a bunch of different versions of the J8 which are still being kind of produced today, and one of them, which looks like it kind of fits this bill, not just with this look, but also with this look here, is, of course, the J8F. Now, the J8F is very different to the J8B that we have in the game. The J8F is a continuation of what is known as the J8C. The J8C is a continuation of what was known as the J83, which was a reimagining of what the J8 series would be. Basically, they added a bunch of new avionics to it, thanks to Elta Systems from Israel, which meant that they could not just they could not just have a more powerful radar in the form of the ELM 2034, it could also open them up to new weapons. One of the major things that a vehicle like this gets access to compared to the other J8s, especially the ones we have in the game, is the PL8. Now, the PL8 is the Python, the good old Python 3, I believe it was, which is the all-aspect IR missile which the Israelis have created. Now, this is obviously incredibly powerful. It's going to be a new step when it comes to air combat, and going to a nation which, at least at the moment, is struggling a little bit when it comes to, you know, the overall stuff. Hopefully, with this air-to-air missile, the good old PL8, it means that a lot of people can enjoy the Chinese stuff. Obviously, they got access to a bunch of really cool things more recently, and the tech trees just get better and better and better as they go along. It also means that maybe Israel will get access to the Python 3s as well, which would be quite nice for the vehicle in, you know, their setup. So overall, a pretty nice setup for these. So infrared homing missiles, all aspect, all of those good stuff that we've seen more recently. And the other differences between like the J8B and also this J8, which is probably the F, is, you know, some other internal avionic things, and also the engines should be slightly different, I believe, but not anything that should blow this thing away. So the main thing that we're looking at is the radar and the weaponry, which is not a surprise when looking at these types of vehicles and how they work at the highest echelon. Then we get our access to our first Russian vehicle and also our second Russian vehicle. This teaser is very focused around very specific nations, and obviously one of them being the Soviets or Russia or the Russian Federation or the USSR, whatever you want to say. This is the BTR-80A. This was actually teased a while back on good old VK of all places, and basically what they said was that this model that they were using was not, you know, a teaser of anything. They were just throwing it out there. Well, guess what? They were lying, which is something they do quite a lot when it comes to these things. This one specifically is the BTR-80A, so this is the standard BTR-80, but it has access to the turret, which has the 2A72 30mm gun with 300 rounds as a primary weapon. The turret that it has access to also has smoke grenades, as you can see, and also is a infantry fighting vehicle, so it can transport troops at the same time. It'll be interesting to see what BR they put this thing at. It does have 3 crew and also 7 passengers that it can bring along, and is one of those vehicles that's used by millions of countries around the place. So this is one which might not just come to the USSR, it could come in many other forms and also many other variants for separate nations if they ever bring them in. So we'll have to see how powerful this 30mm is, and if it's seen as an AA or a light tank. Good to see it though. Then we have a French ship. So this one's a little bit hard to decipher because many of the French ships kind of look the same. The one that we have in the game right now, the Eagle, if you want to say it like that, is part of course, the Eagle class. And what is believed for this vehicle to be is the Valkyrie class, which is the is the successor of the Eagle class, but also it was succeeded by the Fantastique class. So we've had the Fantastique devlog for that destroyer. We have the Eagle class destroyer in the game right now as a CBT one, so this is the middle ground, the Valkyrie class from the early 1930s. This thing has 5 single-mounted 138.6s. It also has some 37s on it, some 13.2s, and also some general torpedoes, so it's very similar to the other destroyers that we have. I'm sure that there are differences, but when the dev server comes out, we'll be able to have a look at this thing and see the differences between it and the other French vehicles that are around the place. It is nice to see that in, La Royale, which is supposed to be something which is, for the French, that they actually do, at least for a few frames, show the naval stuff. I know a lot of people have this weird abrasive, I don't even know what to, like, memory issue when it comes to naval, where when they see it, they instantly just get aggressive about it. It's a very weird mindset to have, but it is nice to see it in the teaser, and I hope going forward we see it a little bit more. Going forward from there, we have once again the Su-25, but this is not the Su-25 that we've seen previously. You may remember in the files there was something which was labeled the Su-25 late. This was something which was in the files on the dev server when the Su-25 and Su-25K were released. Now, the Su-25 late, as it was known, turns out that was the Su-25T. The Su-25T, which is this one, or this might be the TM, depending on who you ask, is a dedicated anti-tank version of the Su-25. And one of the big things that this gets access to is TV-guided bombs, semi-active laser-guided KH-25ML, which we've seen in other places, and of course the other thing that you see on that wing right there, that is the good old EVGA missile. Now, the EVGA missile is one which I suppose has caused great debate in War Thunder because it's been overpowered for years. It's a little bit easier to deal with nowadays on the good old K50 and K52, but it still is overpowered. So now we have another vehicle which will have access to this. And obviously, when it comes to the Su-25T and TM, the differences between them are not huge when it comes to the game. The TM has better attack systems, also has slightly better survivability. But as you may have noticed, the Su-25s already have pretty decent survivability in the game anyway, so it would probably be fine at the end of the day. So yeah, you're getting a dedicated anti-tank version of the Su-25. The other ones, which are more, I suppose, multi-role, are still very good at anti-tank, but this one is a run for the hills, run away screaming, because here comes the monsters. Then, after this, we have what is odd. So this is something I can't work out. So in War Thunder right now, we have two Mirage 2000s. We have kind of a dedicated, more ground attack version, and then we have the more air-to-air version. Now, there's a bunch of other variants of the Mirage 2000 which they could bring in. This one is one of them. This one might be a new variant of the Mirage 2000. They're all very similar in how they look. One of the things that they change on is obviously ordnance and internal systems. And when we have a look at this loadout here on this Mirage 2000, this loadout doesn't exist for either of the Mirage 2000s that's in the game. You have Magic 2s, you have obviously stuff like the paveways, I believe they are, some guided munitions, you have the targeting pod, and you also have the retarded bombs, which are on the back, that you can see like up here. So basically, what this says to me is either the Mirages that we have in the game are going to get new ordnance and also new setups, or we're just getting a new Mirage 2000. And it's very hard to tell because you have obviously this one, and then once again the J8 that we talked about, the J8F, which this one only has rockets. I don't know why you'd ever use that loadout, but it's nice to see it has access to them. Then, once again, the Vickers that we've talked about previously. And then you have, once again, the Mirage, but from the top, you can see a different set of ordnance here. So, dumb bombs, retarded bombs, guided bombs, and also rockets. So, very much ground force ordnance. And then you just have one which has access to, like, the other stuff which is going around. The 155s firing, the MX-30s, the J8 coming in with its ordnance that we've talked about. And then you just have Mirage 2000s with just air-to-air missiles on them for some reason, which are just here. So these are different versions of the Mirage compared to the ones that we saw before. And these ones actually just look like the standard Mirage 2000 that's in the game. So I don't think this one's new or anything like that at the end of the day. Then you have, of course, the vehicle we were talking at the start, the Freccia IFV. Now, this vehicle is incredibly similar to the VBC that we have in the game. I think there's actually a better picture of it later on, so maybe I could find that. Obviously not. But yeah, this is the Freccia IFV. Now, the difference between this one, at least from what we've seen, and the VBC PT2, which is already in game, which is a prototype kind of variant of the Freccia, or at least the ideas of the Freccia. This one has access to 80 gems. You can see on the side of this, it does seem to have some boxes which would indicate some 80 gem use. There was a variant of the Freccia which was designed, which has access to a hip fist turret with the 25mm. This is that hip fist turret, and also has access to a dual anti-tank missile launcher in the form of Spike LR missiles. But this is not showing a dual launcher. This is showing two individual ones. So not entirely sure what's going on with that. But this does just look like a Freccia which has access to the 25. It also has access to 80 gems. That'll be nice. You know, there's a bunch of really cool light vehicles for Italy. Stuff like the Dardo and Friends around that area are super fun. If you haven't played them, I highly recommend them at the end of the day. This one will be highly mobile, and with the extra damage that the 80 gems will bring, will be incredibly fun. So definitely looking forward to that one. The Su-25s are back in action, destroying M3A3s, so nothing too crazy there. And then we get our first look of the F-14B, which is coming to the game, and a skin, which it may have. Of course, once again dropping the retarded bombs. So it looks like they'll have little parachutes, which is really nice. And also you can see the general camouflage that the F-14B would have access to. So look at the parachutes there. They look pretty cool. We'll test them out on the dev server when it comes out to see what's going on, and then kind of go from there with it. But yeah, really cool. And then obviously the drag bombs with the A-10s, so you can see all of them going through. Pretty nice as well, and just going down. I don't know how useful these things will be, but I'm sure somebody will find a use of them, so you know, you can have a bit of fun with them. And then right at the end of the trailer we see something interesting. So one of the things that may have confused you over the years, if you're not hugely into military technology, is that there seems to be a bit of an odd thing in War Thunder. You have laser-guided missiles, and then you have wire-guided missiles, right? And then you also have SACLOS and MCLOS, which are two separate things as well. So, TOWs, for example, there are variants of TOWs which are wire-guided, and then there are variants of TOWs which aren't, depending on which ones you're looking at. And the fact is, this may have confused people, because when you use them in game, there's no wires at all for these ATGMs. Well, now it seems like they're actually putting in a visual setup, which may be for the ATGM. It might be for something else, but you can see the ATGM right here in this, and then of course the wire going out to follow it, which is really cool. So that it would be awesome to see. Something that I'm kind of surprised to see, because to be honest, it's one of those things which just, I thought the Gaijin just decided they didn't want to do, but it's there in the flesh, which is really awesome. So not too bad. Then you have, of course, the Freccia donking on a PTLO2 or a WMA or Huaba 301, just with its missile, showing that it does have one, and then you get a very good view of the launches here. So it's not like the dual setup that we talked about with the spikes. It's probably just going to be the same setup, which is on the Dardo with the TOW2s, with the TOW2, TOW2As, and TOW2Bs, and then, of course, the 25. So ultra mobility, good firepower, should be pretty nice. And then, of course, the BTR-80A turns up once again, and that is the end of the trailer, or the teaser, I should say, teaser trailer. A lot of cool stuff, really nice to see. Fantastic trailer overall, to have a look at everything, and a lot of new weapons. I wish the French naval stuff was shown a little bit more than it was. You know, I'm a bit more of a fan of you know, that naval stuff. I think it should kind of get its shining light, but I'm sure many people will disagree. Overall, fantastic, and hopefully you're looking forward to the next update. For me, I'm just focusing on the Battle Pass stuff and trying to get through it. Hopefully everybody else is too. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Cupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R., and Lafouche for supporting the channel.